From the Startup Experts community, this is the Becoming Better podcast, and I'm its host, Jesse Fries. Emily, it's so good to see you. Thank you for joining our Becoming Better with Startup Experts podcast. Super excited to have you on. You were selected earlier this year as one of our 25 leaders to follow in 25, and I'm really glad that we're finding the time to sit down and get to know you better and chat. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much, Jesse. I'm excited to be here. My name is Emily Ramos, and I own a small L&D consulting company called Catch Coaching and Consulting. I work with leaders and teams in all different size companies to help improve their performance and help them show up how they want to.
That's amazing. And would you share with us a little bit about how you arrived at owning your own consulting firm and tell us a little bit about your career journey?
Yes, it has not been a straight path, to say the least. I've had a few different career pivots. So I started out in media and then went into education. I always thought I would be a teacher. When I was teaching, I was teaching in Silicon Valley. And so I got to know some families that were involved in tech and the startup world. And so I ended up leaving the school and started working at a startup. And that's where a lot of this work really started to combine for me for the first time. So my love of teaching, my interest in team dynamics, and then also bringing in the personal growth work that was really important to me. And then from there, just became kind of a natural path that this is what I wanted to do. And with all the shifts that happened in the pandemic, it just made sense. I thought, okay, I think this is the time to give this a go and see if I can do it. And so that was 5 years ago, almost to the day that I started this.
That's amazing. And you're living up
Yeah.
in Sacramento now and a part of active or active in that chapter as well.
Yes, and I was so glad that Startup Experts came to Sacramento. Previously, pre-pandemic, it was a local San Francisco community, and so I was thrilled to see that they expanded to the East Bay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's right. I've been up there a couple times to see you. Um, in addition to your job, you also volunteer on our executive leadership team as our VP of Learning and Content. Would you share a little bit about that role and how you've organized the team and what your focus is?
Yes, I have loved being a part of the executive team and working with the learning and content team at Startup Experts. It's a great way for us to give back and also pull from the collective group and community. There's so much knowledge. People are doing amazing things, incredible career paths, and it's just a way to really share the knowledge within this community, and giving folks a chance to really shine too. I've been so impressed by these presentations that people pull together. Everyone always says, "Oh, I'm not an expert. I don't know if I should be doing
Yeah.
this." And then 10 minutes into their webinar, I've got like a page of notes of everything they just shared.
Yeah. No, people in our group particularly significantly underestimate how awesome they are and often very, very humble. And I love that about this group. I often say that, we've called ourselves startup experts, and that doesn't mean we're an expert in all things, but usually you can find a handful of people that are expert in something that you're seeking. And so I love that
Yeah,
collective knowledge base.
absolutely. And it's such an opportunity to learn from people. If you're in an organization, it's rare to get to learn from someone outside of your organization. And so I just think that fresh perspective it's so energizing and really highlights like new things that are happening in the workplace.
Yeah, well, I want to appreciate you for stepping up and taking on that role. I know it's not easy. As I've reflected over the last, handful of years with our community, we are so much social, which are the in-person events, ideally up in Sacramento and elsewhere, but also learning and development throughout our career. And that learning might show up as I need an answer today, which we have, an active Slack workspace, and hopefully you can reach out to people via the community, but that development piece is super important. And your team has really embraced that and coming up with the monthly learning themes and really working hard to make us all better as individuals, and in our professional roles.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's such a pleasure to do that. And the interest is also strong for it, right? Like we often have 50, 60 members carving out, an hour of their day in a busy time of year just to join and to learn.
Yeah, phenomenal. Wanted to shift gears a little bit. I know, you're in a learning role. You often, instruct other people and help people come along and gain their own skills. But what is something that you've learned recently that's helped you become a better individual, better human?
It's a good question. I feel like I've been learning a lot recently. I think one of the big ones is learning and really embracing flexibility.
Mm,
I'm someone that loves routine. I love structure. I take a lot of pride in how I plan and prepare for things, and that is very helpful. And there are times where it's less helpful, truthfully, that actually that flexibility piece is the most important. And so that's something that I've been leaning into both as I sort of manage my own work, but also with clients. I'm planning a lot of programs and offsites and trainings with clients, and their needs change often last minute. And so for me to be really flexible, it's something that I've embraced. And I think I've actually want to be careful how I say it, but I've actually enjoyed it. It's been fun to be like, oh, wait, we can pivot here and it can still go really well.
yeah, no, that's a great perspective. Um, any new initiatives you're working on? I mean, outside of Startup Experts and all the work that you do for us, but professionally, is there something that you're really excited about?
I am very excited about there seems to be a really growing interest in this leadership development. And people are keen to be back in the office, back face to face with people. And as much as there's a lot of, AI in the workplace and a lot of these tools that can really help people in their jobs, their day-to-day jobs, there's a strong interest in more development and sort of like at the personal level too. And so for me, that's been thrilling to combine sort of all my workplace knowledge with, like I said, that personal development piece and bringing it to leaders. And oftentimes it's the first time that they're hearing this content about emotional intelligence or active listening or how to really be truly an effective communicator. And I've just seen that, like I said, the interest in that pick up, and that's very exciting.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation. I think so many of the individuals in Startup Experts are, classical team of one, or they're
Yeah.
in-house leading a function or a part of a function. As I imagine in your role, you are seeing a lot of different organizations and a lot of different leadership teams at a really interesting time in this post-pandemic. There's a lot going on in the world. Any observations or things that you're seeing as AI is being rolled out, as individuals are coming back to the office, as um, this place of work is changing?
Yeah, you're spot on. It is changing quickly, and it hasn't settled yet. Like the changes are still very much in progress. I think I'm sort of seeing sort of almost two ends of the spectrum. One is there is such a hunger and interest in AI tools, and it's almost like that makes people more aware that they need to really be able to work human to human as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Like the tools will not get us there if we are not able to understand motivations, communication styles, how to actually work together. And that can be especially challenging in hybrid and remote work environments. And almost all companies have some element of hybrid now. And it's a skill that isn't being taught explicitly and people really need. So it's sort of like those two ends of the spectrum, a lot of tools and then also coming back to basics.
yeah. I couldn't agree more. I've started to see that as well. I mean, we have all built our skill set on being able to be really comfortable with Zoom and online and be able to operate in a distributed way. But yet, as these tools come online, as this ability to access information, from a knowledge perspective, we're smarter than we ever have been. We have the ability to tap into resources. I'm going to give a talk in a couple of weeks on, kind of this idea of cognitive offloading, which is, storing information, being able to access it very quickly,
Right.
which I think, incredible innovation. I mean, not that it's new, but we have tools that can handle that at scale now that are really impressive. But truly, it's that context, that social ability, the ability to work together that we're missing by having such a distributed and by relying on so many of these external tools.
I completely agree. And I think part of the surge and the interest now is more and more people are returning to office. And so there is more of that face to face and realizing that maybe that piece needs some extra attention right now.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about you again. And I always feel that, as you go through one's career, we all make mistakes and we learn often from those mistakes more than we do things that go well. Is there something that you can point to in hindsight that was a aha moment for you that you learned and now don't do again and something you could share out to the broader group?
Yes. Oh, again, so many. I think the one that rises to the top, it's sort of related to the flexibility piece, but I think um, again, sort of going back to that idea of being maybe too rigid in planning or too kind of set on a way that something in my business should have gone or expected outcomes with clients, like thinking that, I'd be there and I would have a, 2 hour presentation planned and really staying focused on executing that versus being present in the moment and seeing what is needed and being flexible. I think it's been a wonderful learning for me. And actually, it reminds me of something that a mentor told me when I was in education. And she said, you're not teaching the lesson, you're here to teach the students. And I think that's something that I'm just really trying to
Mm.
embrace more of from those times when I'd be pretty rigid. And a lot of that came from being nervous and, figuring out how to run a business and deliver to the clients. And so for me, I think just letting it be a little bit more organic, trusting the prep that I've done, and then letting the clients drive some of the outcomes as well.
Yeah, I love that perspective. And with two teenage daughters, they're learning. But as I step back a little bit, I realize what they're doing is not important. It's how they're learning to cope, how they're learning to process
Exactly.
and be healthy emotionally, mentally is what's probably more important here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
Uh,
it just, it looks so different for every person, right? We're all at different starting points, especially for the type of work that I'm teaching. Like we're at different starting points. So it will look different the first time they have a session with me or the first workshop that we do together. And so for me to be really open to what that looks like, it's been a huge and wonderful learning.
no, that's great. I'd love to know about you personally. What is something you could share with the group that you're passionate about that, somebody might not know about you and they would be surprised to learn?
Well, that's a good question.
And I realize
What
it's
am I
not on the
passionate? I don't,
script.
yeah, yeah, no, I was just thinking, I'm like, I don't know what would surprise people. But one thing that I've been spending a lot of time on the last year and a half is yoga.
Okay.
And this is something that I have dabbled in over the years many times, but I've been very consistent with it. And it's that idea of showing up every day, doing the same thing. And for me, over the last year and a half, I've really seen that practice come into so many other areas of my life. And yeah, it's been a really important part of the last couple of years.
Can you share a little bit more about how you've seen it flow into other aspects of your day?
Yeah, it's part of it is the discipline is showing up when I don't feel like it.
Hmm.
And as a solopreneur, there's no one here checking to see if I show up or if I do the
Right.
things that are on my list for that week. And so just that like physical experience of, okay, I'm showing up, even though maybe I don't want to, there's a self-trust piece there that's getting built. I don't know if you're familiar with yoga, but there's certain points in the practice where there might be going really fast and then slow down. What does it feel like to just sit with everything? Or there might be parts where there's really long, challenging hold. I want to get out of that pose. I don't want to be there. Can I stick with it? And what's the mental conversation that's happening? And again, when I sit down and I do something for the first time, or I don't get the client contract that I was really hoping for, it's like I find myself having very similar mental conversations in those work moments that I'm having in the yoga studio. Getting to practice that in a yoga studio, very safe space, helps me show up stronger here.
Oh, love that. That's a really good connection. I mean, I do yoga occasionally, more so when we're on vacation. But there is yoga at our
Nice.
gym. I know my younger daughter usually drags me to it, and
Right.
I'm the type of person that does fall out of those poses, so I can appreciate those comments.
Yeah.
Um, Any single piece of advice that you would share that you've learned either recently or something that you'd like to pass on to our crew?
Yeah, I get a lot of messages on LinkedIn, people sort of wanting to know kind of about the work that I'm doing and especially how to pivot from education into something
Yeah.
like learning and development. And I think the piece of advice I give everyone is it's all about your network. I think every big opportunity and big break I've had has come from someone within 1 or 2 degrees of my network. And so, my biggest piece of advice, especially now with sort of all the uncertainty and all the changes in the workplace, is to just be really active and stay in touch with people. And you might need that someday to have someone in your network help you out. And it also feels really good to be that person who can open doors, who can make introductions. So, either way, whether you're receiving something from your network or you're giving something back, I think it's just a huge piece of our careers.
Love that perspective, and I couldn't agree more. Wanted to thank you for sitting down. Again, wanted to just congratulate you on being selected as one of our 25 leaders
Thank
to
you.
follow in 25. Really want to appreciate you for giving back to our community as our VP of Learning and Content. What you've given, what you've provided to our team, and the learning that's happened, truly is invaluable. So, want to thank you for that.
It's such a pleasure, Jesse. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this Becoming Better with Startup Experts discussion. If you're interested in learning more about our community and perhaps joining, please visit www.startupexperts.us.